Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cross Border Talks. Today, we will turn our attention to Portugal, as Portuguese citizens voted in snap parliamentary elections just 14 days ago, and the result comes as a surprise to many. Portugal is associated rather with strong left-wing parties, at least compared to many other Western European or Southern European countries, but this election was a victory to the right. The moderate right comes first, and a far-right party comes to the parliament for the first time. So it seems that 50 years after a peaceful carnation revolution that put an end to right-wing dictatorship in Portugal, ghosts of that period are coming back, and not only in symbolic meaning. We are going to have a look on Portugal and on developments in Portuguese politics and society together with Tatiana Moutinho, who is a collaborator of Transform Europe, who is a left-wing activist from Portugal, a housing and feminist activist. And Tatiana will help us today to understand what happened and what can happen next. Hello, Tatiana. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, thank you for the invitation.
So in my first question, I'd like to come back a little bit and please tell us why snap elections? Why did the previous government of Portugal fall and you needed to go vote before time?
Okay, so I think that in 2022 we already had elections, and from these elections, a full majority for the Socialist Party, which is the Social Democratic Party in Portugal, they won with a full majority. Normally we would expect a term that would last 4 years. What happened on the 7th of November was that this judiciary investigation was taking place. The cabinet of the then Minister of Infrastructures was raided. The mayor house of Sines, a small city in the south of Portugal, was raided. The chief cabinet of the prime minister was raided, so for searching for documentation, and a couple of other people. And these investigations had to do with some projects and business regarding green energy, hydrogen, and also a big data center that would be built in Sines. And it would be the biggest one in Europe, etc. The news on that was that when the public prosecutor issued a press release saying that these people were being investigated and in which circumstances, there was this last paragraph saying that the prime minister was under investigation as well. And immediately, the prime minister decided to step down for the sake of protecting the institutional role of the prime minister. He said, and I think he did rightly so, that he could not stay if the prime minister was being investigated. The thing is that these investigations, ever since nothing more has been leaked about this former prime minister investigation, the grounds of this research quite quickly became very evident that this is very weak. So this is a snap election that had to be called, and probably because of nothing. But one thing is true: over these past 2 years, and this adds to the situation that we arrived on November the 7th. For 2 years, this government, almost every single month, there was someone from the government, being a general state secretary or a minister or someone close to some cabinet, were stepping down because of corruption, because of interests conflict. So the truth is that this government, ever since it took power, it had been overshadowed by corruption or not very transparent affairs. So the prime minister had no other possibility other than resign, and that's what he did.
Is it only corruption that made the Social Democrats, the Socialist Party, lose trust in society? After all, it happens very rarely that a party which had an absolute majority in a parliament loses not only a leading position in the parliament, but, well, even everything, in fact, as it seems that the Portuguese people switched to the right. So what are other reasons that made the Social Democrats lose people's trust?
So one important reason for sure, so in this context of scandals and corruption, whatever, this was the ideal scenario for a far-right populist party like Chega to appear. They were already represented in the parliament with 12 MPs, but this was the good scenario to go into elections. This is one of the reasons. A second reason is that we must not forget that the Socialist Party had been in power ever since 2015, so which makes already eight years of rule. And the truth is that since 2022, when this government has been ruling with the full majority, the truth is that although the economic indicators such as the deficit and the public debt, the economic growth, so all these indicators have been spectacular. So Portugal ended 2023 with a superávit, which is the first time in the democratic history of the country, I imagine. The truth is that there is a compression in salaries. People are not living better. People cannot feel in their own lives and in their pockets this spectacular economic growth. So in Portugal, we have been facing incredible housing crisis. The national health system, although it did comply and responded during the times of the pandemic, ever since has been in crisis, is not able to capture new doctors to the public sector and nurses and etc. So there is a shortage in staff, and emergency services are being closed throughout the country. So this is very problematic. On the top of it, teachers also have been striking for 2 years now in order to have reinstate the period of time that they lost in terms of counting for career progression that was lost during the Troika years. So there is a lot of social unrestness, and with the cost of living crisis and with the inflation, it's simply impossible that people are living better and feel that they are better. So the socialists, in my personal perspectives, the socialists, they plan to rule for 4 years, of course. And in Portugal, this is typical. When a government is more or less sure that they will last throughout the mandate, during the first 2 years are the strict years, and the last 2 years are the years where they can provide something to the public and invest somehow in public services and increasing wages, etc. And I think the play was cut in the middle and in the worst part of the story. So this was also, I think, detrimental to them, the way they were ruling. And yes, and something unexpected happened. So clearly the socialists, they were not able to retain their own electorate, I think. So they lost 40 MPs in the parliament. If they got the full majority back in 2022 with so blackmailing the left voters with the fear of a rise on the far right, this time it didn't work anymore. So they got this full majority on the basis of this threat. Left voters also felt a little bit discontent because, okay, they didn't want the far right to rise, or at least to rise a lot, but they were not necessarily wanting a full majority of the socialists. So the socialists, they go into this campaign with very few things they can use to attract their own votes. And of course, the former prime minister, he also resigned as secretary general of the Socialist Party. And the new one had this problem of being the leader of the incumbent party. So he could not say, from now on, we will govern completely in a completely different way. He could not break also with his legacy. And the refreshment that he was proposing clearly did not attract voters. So this is how the socialists, I think, can explain their own disaster.
Okay, let's focus now on the Chega party, which is clearly kind of winner of this election, surprising rise. And could you tell us something about their political profile? Who these people are? What is their issues they are giving or offering to the society? What is their specifically socio-economic program? What they offer in socio-economic program? And maybe put them in the Portuguese and European context, because at least in Portugal, as I understand, this is a new force. This is a new political force which exists since 2019 only.
Okay, let me see if you have many questions inside your question. Let me see if I don't forget to answer any aspect, but if I do, please remind. So it's true, Chega Party was founded in 2019. It managed to elect one MP back then. Then in 2022, they already elected 12 MPs. So they raised from 1% to 7.7, 7.8%. And now they raised to 18% and 50 MPs on the year that we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Carnation Revolution. Everything is symbolic here, and it's really sad. So the truth is, as I told you before, so going into election with a government that has to step down on the grounds of corruption, it's the best possible present that you can offer to a party like this. So I don't think that Chega had a hard task in this election. And in their campaign, the targets were, of course, the motto was, we are going to clean Portugal. So remove the elites that have been in power for 50 years. So we are cleaning the country. They had very strong stances against migration. And then it's very complicated to understand their proposal, because they can say one thing and it's contrary on the same day. Even sometimes if they are interviewed, in the same interview, they say one thing and it's opposite. Clearly, they understood that there was this social restlessness, that people are not happy about their lives and their wages. So they were proposing much, I would say, progressive measures. Of course, I don't think they were true or they were to be implemented. But for example, they even proposed, for example, to tax the bank sector profits, which the past 2 years were spectacular. Things like this. They will increase the minimum retirement pension up to equal the minimum wage in Portugal. So very attractive measures, and measures that make a progressive political, a progressive economy plan for a left party. In this, they were not stupid, because, for example, in 2019, in their program, they wanted to privatize schools, privatize everything, everything. Milei agenda, more or less. And 5 years later, they moved towards a completely different agenda, or proposal. But I think this only because it fits the political and social situation right now. What was the other question? Sorry. So
No,
it's
the question there was how to like situate them within the political spectrum in Portugal, because you have spectrum which was for long divided between two big forces, and now they are like third force. So how to understand it if it's saying something about the system?
okay. So clearly, what we have out of this election, before there was always in power either the center right or the center left, the Social Democrats. There has been this bipartidary system, and for sure this is over, at least for now. And we have three big blocks in the parliament that came out of this election. So one is the so-called center right, which is the center right coalition that won the elections by 2 MPs, 1% towards the Socialists, and the Liberals, which are a party more or less of the size of the Bloco de Esquerda these days. Then we have a far-right bloc with the 50 MPs of Chega and 18%. And then I would say a left and center-left bloc, which makes up to 92 seats in a parliament of 230. So the left bloc with 92 seats is bigger than the center-right bloc, which only has 82 MPs. But then we have these 50 far-right MPs. Chega and his resounding result. Of course, we still don't have yet studies on the vote transfer during this election, but clearly they absorbed voters from the Socialists, voters from the center-right, possibly, but very few from left parties, smaller left parties, but that's not a tendency, but it's possible. But mainly they cut their share of votes from the abstention. So in this election, we have the hugest turnout since 95. So the turnout was of 60%, with more 900,000 people voting, because now before it was 750,000, but now with the immigrants circles counted, it adds up to more 900,000 votes. And the party that most benefited from this turnout is clearly Chega. So I think what this is telling us is that many people in Portugal are really fed up with what they perceive as being the system, and they turn to this party to vote. We still don't understand. Of course, some will adhere to this type of ideology and discourse and narrative, but which extent of this vote is a protest vote, meaning a vote that can change either back to abstention or being transferred towards some other party, is still not, we still don't know. But this is a huge sign that people are really tired and fed up with the political scenario they used to have. And I think this is the most important or significant political message that must be drawn from these results, particularly, of course, from a left-wing perspective. I think, in my view, for example, after these 2 years of full majority of the center-left, without being able to respond to people's needs and demands, this is a textbook scenario for smaller leftist parties such as Bloco or the Communist Party to rise. And they didn't manage. Bloco, they increased by 30,000 votes. They have exactly more or less the same share of votes as in 2022, and they maintain their 5 MPs. But for example, the Communists, they lost 2 MPs, and they lost also 40,000 votes. So this is what the left should be reflecting on right now and trying to face, and facing in the best possible way.
Okay, you actually answered my question about the turnout. We just remind the people that this was 750,000 about voters who turned to be voters and they were abstaining before, which is a huge number of people. But still, I will ask, or I will turn your attention to other question, and that is, I know it's difficult to predict, but do you think that they will still, within this dynamics which was created now due to the corruption and winning now the legislative election, do you think that Chega party will be also successful in the European elections, which are coming very soon? What's your guess here about this?
Yes, that's one of the questions that everybody is rising and is thinking of. I think it's possible that they will get a good score. It's possible even that they will get better, because European elections are at the national level are perceived not real elections. So we may, you know, make our protest vote there because just for the fun of shaking the establishment. This is a possibility, of course, but let's see, because now they are in parliament, and how can I say it? I'm not sure they will be the best behaved people, well, not even at my table for dinner, let alone the parliament. So their performance also can dictate some change and not necessarily in their favor. It's true that the figure, the role of the leader is very important, and it's almost always him and 4 or 5 people around him that talk. If all the other 45 remain silent, maybe they can manage, but if they start acting and speaking, maybe they will lose. We don't know. For us, it's new, although, of course, we have been following the rise of the far right all over. It's not that we don't know and we have not tried to study and understand what is going on internationally, but it's really, really puzzling how people that are so contradictory in their stances can attract people to have confidence on them. This is, for me, there is a huge contradiction here that I don't have an answer for it. For example, one of their big stances is the fight against corruption. If you look at the 50 MPs that were elected by Chega, 23 of them have been or are involved in scandals of corruption, have been in jail for murder. 23 of them are either under investigation, have been on trial, have been accused, have been sentenced. So it's this topic to some extent. So this is why for me it's so difficult to envision what will take place in June. And of course, from the fact that this is just brand new, so the MPs have taken their seats 2 days ago. Yesterday they elected the president of the parliament. The parliament will start working from now on. So these first months, these first weeks, everything is new, everything is under scrutiny. Maybe there is some room for understanding better how they will behave and how people will perceive their performances. But yes, right now I would say that Chega is aiming to a great score for the European elections, yes.
In the final question, I'd like to ask about the prospects for the future, because you named earlier some very serious social issues, such as the healthcare system or education, or even the issue of Portugal losing citizens and the migration question. So those are very serious problems that the right wing will now need to tackle. And where is the place for the left in all this? Would the left, in your view, be able to persuade people that that the left-wing ideas and the left-wing plans are actually working better for the good of everybody? Because it really struck me what you said, that the extreme right used progressive rhetorics, actually, that they suggested something that could have been spoken also by people from the radical left, but still it was the far right that won the confidence of people, not the far left. So what do you see in the Portugal's future then?
I don't know, because for us it's new. One thing, I think there is one moment in the very near future which will be very important, and I think will be a landmark or not. We still have to see. That will be the 25th of April. So it's the 50 years of the revolution. Ever since the revolution took place on the 25th of April, there are demonstrations for freedom, against dictatorship. So a kind of remembrance moment, but also with political and social, current political and social demands. So it will be very important that all over the country on the 25th of April, the celebrations and especially the demonstrations will be expectedly very big. This will give, we must give this sign to the society and to us, because okay, it's 18%. It's not it's not as if they are as if the far right is the majority. And of course, within the center right, there is still a huge part of the voters that vote for the center right, but are people who recognize the heritage of the 25th of April. So we have this first clash that we must secure. And then, of course, well, the parties in the parliament, that they will try to do what they have to do, hopefully. But I think we must take the streets, and we must take the social movements, and we must support the trade unions in their work closer to workers. I think the street will dictate the how we can counteract this shift towards the right. Of course, we have a problem here, because nobody knows how long this government will last. It's possible. So according to the Portuguese constitution, we held elections for 6 months. No new elections can be called. But by the end of the year, by October, November, the center-right party will have to present a national budget, which is the economic translation of their policies. And if this budget is not approved, and if they don't manage to approve some other budget, the government will fall. So we don't know if this government will last 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, or 4. And of course, this puts the center-right party in a very delicate position, because they will have to negotiate. And the question is, with whom will they negotiate? With the far right? If they do it, they run the risk of simply in the next elections disappearing with transfer of votes to the far right. Or with the socialists, the social democrats in Portugal. It's very complicated. The social democrats, of course, they are not willing to join forces with the center-right, because then they would leave the opposition to the far right. So we have a balance of forces that used to be between two, now it's three, and and it's the way you pull the strings has changed a lot. What seems, I don't want to believe that this is true, but what seems to be happening is, in whatever scenario, the far right seems to become the winner all the time. If they force the government to fall, they may collect from it. If they not go into the government, they will not be part of the government, that's clear. But if they ally with government somehow to allow for this term to go on, maybe they will also gain from it. So it's very complicated. I think the strategy, the political strategy from the left side must be isolate the far right and try to denounce as much as possible their contradictions, and doing something, for example, that we don't see these days. 2 days ago, before just a brief example, before the election of the president of the parliament, the far right said, we already have an agreement with the winning party. They said this, we have an agreement with the winning party. And then two high party officials of the winning party came to the journalists saying, we have no sort of agreement whatever. And then, so there is this crisis, they don't manage to elect her, and the journalist comes to the leader of the far right and asks him again, so were there negotiations, talks, whatever? And this was saying, yes, we had an agreement. And 5 seconds after, but we never talked. And we had an agreement and we never talked. And nobody, not one single journalist was asking him, but please explain us, did you talk or not? You cannot say that you talk and you don't talk at the same time. And they are doing this all the time and nobody is confronting them. So it's, I think this period will be over soon enough. And once this period is over and these people have to be liable for what they say and what they defend, at least these things will change. But right now, it's this topic. They can say one thing and the opposite in the same sentence, and everybody reacts as if this is normal. If this would be happening to former prime minister or now the new prime minister, if he dares to say one thing and it's opposite in the same sentence, everybody will be asking him, what are you doing? What do you mean? So I don't know. I think it's kind of everybody feels mesmerized right now and does not react. But I think this period will be over soon enough. And okay, and then we can start again talking about politics, even if we have these people there and we have to deal with them and fight against them, but fight, not being, right now I think everybody is paralyzed. Everybody's, I think the moment we break with this, we will be able to change things and not accept things as they are.
Let's really hope so, because what are you describing kind of from the Czech politics, and things are not getting better in our case. So I wish that in the case of Portugal, these political confusions where all possible messages can be put in one sentences, even they are contradictory, they don't make sense, are totally normal. And they are totally normal for populists, specifically for the populist forces. So we will really wish Portugal that this definitely not easy times, and the times when country is having a lot of challenges. At the same time, there is a political instability coming in, and uncertainty will be soon over. This is also the end of our today's episode. Our guest was a Portuguese activist and facilitator for Transform Europe, Tatiana Moutinho. We thank you very much for your insights into the Portuguese politics. Thank you. And of course, thank you everybody watching us today and in other episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us. And I wish everybody have a nice day or evening or night.